Hello, hello.
G'day, mate.
Hola.
G'day. Hope everyone is doing well. Been a pretty action-packed week. Good Lord, there's going on. Luke is under the weather tonight, so he won't be joining us. So we'll do our updates as best we possibly can, of course. And we've got a ton of questions courtesy of Lala, who has compiled those for us, which is great. But what do you want to do? Do you want to start with? We can do a little bit of a. Oh, I've got to wait for some more people to do a little bit of a roundup. We start with with some questions from the feed first. Oh, you want to go? Yep. Awesome.
Yeah, I'll read up a few for you. I'll go based on who submitted first. So we'll go with Still Wrecked. So his question goes, with the release of news that Apple's headset is going to be built in Unity, there will always be a wave of ultra high graphics promo videos from projects that are going to promise big things and likely deliver nothing. How does RFOX plan to demystify these inevitable claims? And do you see it has an advantages to maybe create your own marketing base around a futuristic RFOX? We see too many times the capital that should be destined for RFOX goes to half-assed alternatives.
It's a great question. And just to give you a little bit of the psychology of how we think as well, like you've probably seen, you've got the SEC, which we'll touch on later, going after and labeling some of these other metaverse projects as securities and stuff like that. So you're always thinking, how do you get attention? How do you become or try and work out how to position yourself? How do you get more of that attention and traffic? And as far as the graphics and stuff are concerned, I'm sure I've already been told today that there are a couple of projects working on some pretty fancy schmancy stuff that it's probably not going to be deliverable. I think what we've done, and you'll start seeing it in the tweets now, we've got like a coming soon, and we've started doing some outreach marketing. You're going to see us on a lot of social things over the next week or two. But we've talked about what's coming soon as well. So I think the best way to combat it is, because we actually have a base metaverse and people can verify what it looks like, it's easy for us to create videos or concept videos based on the assets and the things that we have. So that's probably the best way to do it, is to showcase what's here, what we have. You're never going to be able to completely sort of wipe out what some people claim is possible. And Art Klegger taught us in the early days that never believe a video game trailer, because they're almost never accurate. They always claim massive things that can't be produced. So we know that a lot of that stuff isn't going to be real, but we can provide, and you've seen the coming soons, and I'm sure that people will ask about that tonight, but we talked about, now I've got to try and remember which ones have gone out yet, Lala.
The one that came out today?
The view mode.
Yeah.
So one of the things, yeah. So we're trying to keep pretty safe, trying not to claim things that we think are completely outrageous. So view mode is more sort of, I've talked to the guys about this multiple times, but if you're going to, let's just say that we have the C11DAO throw an event for Aavegotchi, and you say, oh, I didn't get to go, I didn't get to see it, I didn't get to be part of it, is the ability to be able to go into like a pre-recorded version of that, so that I can walk around and see and look and feel like I'm part of it still. So we're trying to do a bit more of the coming soon stuff, and we can actually sort of, at least with a lot of that stuff, you can mock up videos of what it might look like. We're going to do a couple of things. Red Pill's been amazing with being able to sort of act very quickly, so you can sort of go now and say, hey, what would be the chances of this happening or that happening? And now we can start to showcase potential ideas. In the past, we've sat down, we've scoped something, we've built it end to end, we've taken months, we've spent extraordinary amounts of money, and we don't know whether that end product is going to be something that people demand or want or use. Now we're in a luxurious position because we can go out and sort of say, right, coming soon, or here's a glimpse of what's next, and showcase that. And if people go, holy crap, I want to get involved in that, or how can I become part of that, then you know you're onto something and it's worth fleshing out further. If nobody bats an eyelid, then you can sort of say, well, there's no demand for that, so we'll put the queue in the rack and wait for a time when it is. So it's going to be good because we'll get to rapid fire put some concepts out. But as far as like completely demystifying that, you know, it's a fine line between going out and calling bullshit and saying, well, that's not true, they can't do that, and just staying in your lane and saying, we've got something, it's real, this is what's coming, this is what you can look forward to. You're never going to be able to completely combat it. It's just like when someone says we're the number one metaverse in the world, based on what? It's hard to combat. You just got to go out and sort of show the progress that you're making. But if you ever need a reminder of where you think we might be in a year, I went through the RFOX videos today and I saw a video from just over a year ago, and it was someone from the community doing a 45-second clip, a short, of them being in the vault, climbing up on top of a building and jumping off and all the rest of it. And if you look at that compared to now, it's almost like a face plant type moment. You're sort of thinking, oh no, look at how that looked. And we knew that would be the case, but to think how far we've come in a year, like I can't even imagine how far we're going to be in another year from now. So I think the answer is for us to be able to just showcase what we've got, focus on what we've got, and really focus on the innovation part, because we've got to get that word out. And you'll see that we're trying in the next, Lala, over the course of the next week, there'll be a number of things with very, very wide-reaching audiences where we're talking about what we have and what we think will happen in the space as a result of Apple and all the rest of it. So that'll position us, one, as thought leaders, two, as it gives us a chance to be able to really voice what it is that's that we have that's unique or different.
Alrighty, and the next question we have is from Derek, and he asked, would be interesting to get Ben's thoughts on the Binance Securities SEC saga and the view of the RFOX token currently. And what category do you see RFOX falling into in the future, as I have no doubt we will be listed on a major exchange at some point?
It's a really good question. And I know this is recorded, so I've got to be very careful what I say. But ultimately, there's a lot of people who are pretty upset and think it's an attack and a war on crypto because the SEC are going after Binance. The thing is, every project or every company is accountable for their actions, right? So every one of them could or should be subject to review. So technically speaking, if they haven't done anything wrong, then there shouldn't be any consequences, right? But there's been a couple that have, we won't name names, there's been a couple that have looked like they've done things really wrong and they haven't lost their battles to appeal those or get them overturned. We saw one basically overturned recently due to sloppy evidence. We saw another one that's playing out now that we all know about, like it's going to go the way of the project. Binance obviously has operated in a number of territories for a number of years and done a number of things so happen. But this whole it's a war on crypto as an isolated event, if you just took Binance and said that's a war on crypto, I think that's just silly. But now that they're going after Coinbase and all the other tokens, there's 13 other tokens and 67 in total, you can tell that they've got a beef with it. As far as us, how do we go about that? So those projects are all listed on major American-based exchanges like Coinbase, and they're being gone after because the Coinbase never registered or filed to have those securities registered or listed. But the really weird part about it is that, like, for example, Ethereum hasn't been mentioned, and yet Gensler said that he thinks that Ethereum's a security, and he said yesterday that only Bitcoin's not. And then Cardano has been listed as a security on one and not on another. So it's really inconsistent, and the evidence is very patchy. So it's it's very difficult to know, but I would assume that if we were listed on an American exchange at this point in time, that we would not be immune to being slapped with the same label. So the honest answer is we just have to keep our eye on how it's progressing, and we have to look at making sure that we comply as best we can. It's almost a blessing that we're not on a big American exchange at this particular point in time. But that could change. There is definitely interest in getting it listed from the other side, but the issue is that we have to, there's a whole lot of stuff that we have to take into consideration as a project, and we're always extremely mindful of trying to tread the right line. The last thing you need is a distraction of being pulled into a court or pulled through the mud. We're trying to do the right thing. We've proven we've been around for a long time now. We're building, we've got products, we've got things coming out. It's not like a meme coin or something like that. So we just need to make sure that we do the best we can to protect ourselves and you guys. If anyone else wants to add anything, if anyone else from the team wants to add anything on any of these questions, please feel free to jump in. But, you know, I can say, is Adelaire here yet? No. Anyone from C11DAO? I think anyone who's tried to go on the other side of the fence, you realise it's nowhere near as easy as people think it is. You see BitLord and all those guys have got launched Mong and these other tokens, and they've come back and sort of said, hey, there's manipulation and exchange against us, and everybody's trying to manipulate stuff, and you feel like saying, welcome to the party. That's what we have to deal with every single day of our lives. So it's not easy, and it's a lot of stuff you have to juggle to try and get it right. We won't always get it right, but we'll always try.
For sure. So next person to ask this week a few questions. There's basically 3 questions from Valt this week. And the first one is for in-vault payment options. Can you expand on which payment options you're adding to the Vault and how you see these working seamlessly and immersively in VR? Would it be Google Pay, Apple Pay, MetaMask integration for crypto, etc.? Also, how are you doing this and when?
Yeah, that's a very good question as well. We've always had the philosophy or attitude that we want to take whatever's in a person's pocket. We want to make it as easy and the lowest barriers to entry. Some of the things, as we know, don't have integration set up for VR, for example, or if your payment options change if you're listed on a Play Store or an App Store, something like that. So we just have to sort of be flexible with how we do that. But now that there's a sort of a push towards headsets and technology and payment gateways, now that there's sort of a renewed interest in this type of field, you'd expect that a lot more rails would open up. We've always also said that we would prefer not to deal with that side of things, meaning if an exchange or a company, a financial services company came in and said they'd like to partner, we'd like to not have to worry about what we've just talked about, the legalities and the licensing and all the rest of it, and we'd be very happy to have people plug in and help take care of that. We've already looked at options. A lot of the crypto-based ones, I think it's fair to say from our side, are still very expensive because they're taking a lot of risk. So we're sort of monitoring it. We do have an overarching solution, and we are looking at implementing that shortly, and we'll explain that as we go, get closer to going to market. But we have an overarching one, but still on the underneath, the things that have just been asked are still going to be important because we'd have to plug things in at the base level. But we'll have effectively one system for all of the payments. But we'll advise you on that very shortly. It took us a long time to research it, to get the right tech in place. I think Red Pill, how long have we been talking about that? I think 4 years, 3 or 4 years.
Oh, yeah.
I know you've been talking to me about that since before I joined. So
yeah, it's bloody hard, guys, because the thing is, like, even when we got to the VR headset, we went in and said, oh, this is cool. And then we worked out wax and all the rest of it. And then we said, all right, let's put Ethereum. And then we said, you know, there's got to be a MetaMask app or some sort of app or plugin or whatever. And it's like, nope, no one's got something. And the question that's come up the most during the week has been, you know, what happens if a different headset takes over, or what happens if a different headset becomes more popular? We've always said that we are trying to make sure that we build with, you know, we're building with Unity, we're building with the most used engine, the most used tools, and we're trying to make sure that we are more not tied to a particular technology as far as the end user device is concerned. We want to make sure that we give people access in every way possible, and that's already on display because we have obviously Quest VR, we have Android, iOS versions, and they're all slightly different, of course, because they're different different access or different devices. But we're also trying to make the specifications for people building with us in VR first, trying to make sure that they can be usable on mobile in addition to VR. And of course, you cannot access Fear or Arcade yet, but the specifications that we've set up going forwards would indicate that we shouldn't have many people come in and integrate that are only VR. We're trying to make sure that it's able to be converted to and offered on mobile as well. But we'll try and ensure that we are focused on the actual experience and the tools, and that the end user devices are going to be something that we're going to try and obviously make sure there's as much access to as many end user devices as possible. Anyone want to add anything to that?
I think just in general, it's always a bit tricky with those stores because you always got to have a certain compromise in some sense. Either you go hardcore on the crypto side and do everything in crypto and do things in the back end and transactions from within and everything, but then you're probably going to be banned in the main stores, so you will have a problem with getting the users on and go to the platforms and places where the users are. So it's the trick is basically finding a middle ground between all those things, and I think we found a pretty good kind of approach that we can do. We can leverage both ends. And yeah, we're just working that out at the moment, but I think we made a lot of progress on that front already, just designing the system behind it. It's definitely not an easy one, but number one should always be the user experience, that it's really easy to use. We saw the first integration we had with our in-game wallet in VR was extremely clunky, and that's also like technically we did blockchain transactions and you could buy things inside the vault without a problem, but it was just extremely slow and not a great user experience, and that's just not acceptable for us. So we're working out a solution that's much better than that.
There we go. So the follow-up question for the in-vault payment options from Valtox was the type of transactions expected in the early days. As the Vault has changed a lot from its initial shop focus and expanded into much larger districts, the focus has been more towards either fun, engaging experiences, which is very logical and exciting. However, with this, it is maybe to expect that a lot of these experiences will have a low entry or free entry, with maybe the possibility to buy in-game assets and other stuff in those worlds as an option, as opposed to districts with paywalls with this fewer users. Do you agree? Anyway, the main question, which types of transactions do you think will bring most flow through the Vault for these 3 to 5 years? Would it be secondary sales, retail, or others?
Okay, so this is this one. I'm sure a few of us will have an opinion on this, but ultimately, the way that we'd originally structured to have the shops had potentially a limited number of displays that you could potentially sell through, in NFTs. It was a simple format and structure. That also would have been a free and experiences for a lot larger user numbers. Means that we have the ability to really sort of have more people in and have more, like you say, in-game purchases, more sales. We would make money, yes, from the secondary sales. We'll also make money from some primary sales. But we also do have a couple of projects that we're talking to now that already have an in-game purchase or in-app purchase model or design. So we're working through that with them as well. I think that honestly, going for these more sort of open experiences is going to bring in more users and more revenue and more earning potential for us by a mile. Otherwise, we wouldn't have done that. But I think the original model was fine to sort of use as a showcase, but we've worked out that this is going to potentially bring in a lot more users and revenue. Yes. Anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah, I personally think wearables, those are going to be huge things. Number one, everybody likes to customize things. Even if it doesn't change your experience, people just like knowing that they're a bit different or they have something that is limited edition. So I see that kind of immersiveness. And I think when we had the Aavegotchi event over the weekend, we saw like those kind of interest in seeing their avatars change or have certain elements in the district that reminded them of their community. So I see more of those type of customizations being a big hit.
And regarding experiences, I think most, if not all, districts will offer a free, at least a free trial, if not free to play, because it doesn't make sense to paywall your content. You're just not going to make any money that way.
Alrighty, and the last one from Vault Talks is local vaults, just for fun and possible. Now that the districts have so much more potential and size, have you discussed a different approach to local vaults than before? Maybe scaling in a different way than with local vaults? Just curious to hear if you give this any thought these days. I'll expect this to not happen before all 5 quarters are busy, but always fun to hear what you've got going.
Yeah, that's a great question as well. The thing is that we've never really deviated from the plan, and we know that, like we've been speaking to a few potential partners that if they brought in their network, we obviously wouldn't have enough spaces. But we also know that it's possible to have multiple projects in one space because they can scale more infinitely now. They're not obviously they are finite, but they can scale a lot more now. So that's definitely meant that we've got more scope, and I think there's a few that projects that are looking at bringing in 3, 4, 5 experiences or games or whatever into one district. So I think you'll see that that'll expand more. We're also, with the development of APIs and SDKs and all the rest of it, we're also seeing a desire or the request for people to do their own sort of worlds, as we've always seen. So in addition to having localized vaults, it is also possible that that you'll end up getting like a multiverse type system because of the API, where multiple people will come along and use our technology to build worlds or areas that might be focused on a particular region, location, or theme. So I think what we're effectively saying is that the opportunities for us, both through the technology sets that we've used and the way this is evolving, has actually gotten bigger for us. So we're only ever going to get so far as RFOX and as us building stuff, and we knew that. So that's why the creative stuff are very, very important. But now that you've provided that tool set and that base, now you've got other people that can come along and sort of help spread your technology and build your ecosystem out for you in different directions and for different technology. So that's really, really a big win for us, and that's something that we'll talk about very shortly as well. So that sort of demand will definitely come. And there's a lot, we told you in the beginning that we were talking to brands that would say, you don't have anybody in your vault yet, so we don't really want to build in your vault, but if you want to give us a world, we'll have our own world. Well, now there's nothing stopping those people in the very near future from coming along and saying, we're also going to build a Nike world, for example, that will be powered by RFOX technology and tools. So that's a massive win-win for exposure, for eyeballs, for traffic, for use of our technology. So yeah, that's very exciting. So stay tuned for that type of thing as well. That's always a very big opportunity for us now.
Alrighty,
Nope.
the last question, I guess, is, well, the last person to ask a few questions is Jay Charles. And his question is, has there been any recent communications with Novo or Raoul Pal? These guys showed interest a while ago. And also, what is the plan for marquee clients in the vault in the next 6 to 12 months?
The Novo and that, we sort of try and touch base or reach out with everybody, reach out to everybody, and we've done the rounds again recently. So I think people are still fans of what we're doing. It's a matter of what we can do with people going forward. So in relation to marquees, how do I say that diplomatically as well? I think we've matured a lot over the last year. We've obviously got much better products, and people can see what that vision is now. We were always mindful, and we said this to you guys as well at the time, is that brands very much have that set and opinion of, you're lucky to have us, and you should therefore be forking out and paying for us and all the rest of it, and doing all of the work, etc. We sort of were very cautious to lock ourselves into stuff that we couldn't get out of, or that we might outgrow. And there's nothing wrong with saying that, because we are ambitious. But now we've got a lot stronger, more suitable candidates coming forwards to us, and we do have the flexibility to work with those people. So what we're looking for are genuine companies who want to actually deploy and build, and are prepared to roll up their sleeves and do that themselves, because they see that this is an early opportunity. And in fairness to anybody we talked to a year ago, they couldn't see it, and they couldn't understand what that involvement was. And if you don't have tools available, you can't show them what they have to do either. So we ended up having conversations very much around, could we do this, could we do that, and them throwing a wish list at you. And if you say, oh, we could potentially do that, they'd say, right, do it, build it for us, and just give it to us. And we'd be there like, that'll take all of our resource, all of our focus, all of our time. We're now getting much closer to a point where we can say, if you're interested and you honestly have something that you think would add value, and you think we can add value to your product or brand, here are the tools, come in and build it. And we're having more of those conversations now, but we still have a few. That are requiring full assistance and build out and all the rest of it, and we're trying to work out what's the best way to showcase that and to execute that. But the next 6 to 12 months, I think you'll see a number of marquees added to the roster, but you'll also see marquees that sort of join as just a normal district. And the reason that is because these districts are much more powerful now. They're not just a box shop. They're scalable worlds. So you'll have no problems with the marquee style of brand coming in and saying, I'll take just a general district, because it's just as powerful now. So that's going to be, I guess, the big change. But again, we couldn't display or showcase what it is we had or what we were building. Now it's really easy for people to understand. They can watch a video, do a walkthrough, and they go, I get it. So the question we get now more is, when will the tools be ready? What will I have to do from my end versus what templates or AI customizations or integrations you'd offer? And we're actually really honestly, for the first time, getting a chance to be able to sort of say, what could that builder or brand bring to the vault? And we want users and developers, obviously. So it's no point just doing something for the sake of saying, hey, that's a happy announcement, and that's good, and people might see that as being bullish. We need to build with long-term partners. The last thing we want is a phase with cobwebs on it and no one trying to build or deploy in there. That just would be stupid for a short win and a hurrah.
Yep, I think we've cleared all the questions that were submitted earlier, so that's pretty much it. If anyone has any questions now, they can definitely type it in and read it out for you guys.
I think that maybe if you can collate those, Lala, what people have written in the chat. But in relation to the Apple headset, and we're going on we're doing some interviews and stuff tonight after this, and over the next few days on some big channels, and that's the topic on everybody's lips, isn't it? Is what do you think of the Apple headset? Where do you think this is all going? I can only give you my opinion, but ultimately it's great. It's brought some eyeballs to the space and the possibilities. And I think, in fairness, with Meta's drop off and their lack of focus on metaverse, or their scaling back, a lot of people were very negative on the space in general. And regardless of what Apple's headset's designed to do, it's brought about a renewed interest in headsets and what mixed reality could look like. So that's been very, very bullish. And I think that they're definitely building in a different direction and going in a different way. And for us, it's about the eyeballs and it's about the attention. And unfortunately, SEC's come in during that same period of time and sort of shaking the tree a little bit, right? As it is, we seem to be very unfortunate when it comes to that. We always end up having some really good news at the same time as the market goes bush. But ultimately, there's a lot of stuff we don't know about Apple yet. No one's seen the SDK. Very few people have actually trialed the headset. There's lots of questions. There's no controllers at this stage. We don't know about what other companies will build apps or compatible devices. It's very heavily geared towards the AR side of things. But if a big player worth now, $3 trillion, or the best part of $3 trillion in the market, says there's a future here, and it is a gamble at $3,500 a headset, it's a gamble, right? But they're not one to make frivolous bets or gambles. They think about things very carefully. There's a lot of power packed in that. There's some really good reviews out there that state what it actually is and what it should be used for. I don't know if it's a game changer for Quest and all the rest of it. I think that those will still stay on separate tracks and head in very different directions. But it's definitely made a statement as far as this is the benchmark, and other providers and other manufacturers have to lift their game and provide more. There's a lot of hardware in there. There's a lot of power in that headset. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it goes. But for all of the people that were going to sort of jump on it and say that, they're putting their game or whatever inside of the Apple headset tomorrow, so to speak, they're going to have to rethink their strategies now, because it's a very different release than what some people might have thought it was. And I think a lot of people will be able to call BS on that very quickly. But I know that Mike has been doing some research as well. Is there anything that you want to share in relation to the headset?
Obviously, personally, I'm extremely bullish. I am a fan of Apple stuff because of their simplistic stuff, and I know for a fact that an Apple device will always have an incredible UI, and the UX, the user experience will be brilliant, which so far that seems to be what everyone's reporting. It's absolutely amazing. There's obviously some curious points that are popping up where people are saying, okay, but what's Apple's take on stuff like accessories? Because there's been a lot of development in the VR industry around accessories, like different controllers that change the way you can interact in your spaces and their compatibility with all the different headsets that are out there. So there's been some standards that have been defined. And there's stuff like haptic suits and all these things, which right now, with obviously Apple's got its whole tendency to be a very closed ecosystem where Apple products work with Apple products. Everyone on the development side and on the tech side are kind of waiting to see how those things are all going to tie in, and if they're going to open up for third party, create SDKs, are they going to allow these other things to do what they were doing with the other, obviously, like open source platforms that you have developing VR headsets. So that's the one thing that I've noticed. Everyone's asking those questions, which are cool because that's important. I could imagine the haptic suit with a VR head with the Apple thing while you're watching a movie and shrapnel flies out of an explosion and hits you in your chest or something like that would be amazing. But there's also a very, very specific market that the Apple headset seems to be targeted towards initially, which is definitely more the productivity side. Even though Apple's not known for gaming, they seem to be making a big effort, which is pretty cool. The headset's definitely a more productivity thing where they are taking your real world and they're putting digital things inside of it. It's not like what VR is right now, where it's trying to create entire new virtual reality worlds that you can move through and like game in. Not that it can't do it. It's just right now it hasn't been developed to do that yet. So it's kind of very much so AR at the moment and not so much VR. So that's something that I'm also curious to see what developers pump out and what comes out from that. Those are just the two like really big things that if it wasn't Apple, I wouldn't be as concerned. But because it is Apple, you don't know if they're gonna create the solutions to that and kind of block everybody out from it and capitalize and completely corner that market through their typical paywall experience, which we all know they do.
I mean, for myself, I think it's the interesting thing to me was the pricing. I think, now that it's bringing mainstream eyes back to metaverse and VR, people are going to look for an alternative they can afford. So, like personally, I think the guys at Meta were all doing the happy dance when the pricing news came out.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and they've they've like Micah said, it's very much on the productivity side. They never mentioned the word VR. They were very clear on the fact that it wasn't a gaming headset, so to speak. So it's a little bit different to what people thought it was.
Yeah, my take on it is this. It's with regards to the price, I kind of disagree with Philip. The price I think is okay, and here's why. This is not a VR headset, right? Like to the likes of the PSVR or the Pico or the Quest. This is a PC on your head, right? So you compare it, like to a MacBook. So if you're buying a MacBook, or if you want to buy a MacBook early next year, then you can start thinking, do I need the MacBook, or can I just buy this, put it on my head, get a couple of battery packs, and then do all my work on this headset and not have to buy a MacBook. I can use it on the train. I can't use it while driving, obviously, but I can do it while commuting. I can I can do my work in the park, just like if I was carrying a MacBook on my lap, right? So I think they're positioning it that way. While they say that you could bring your MacBook screen onto the headset, if you have a MacBook, why would you want to do that? Why do your Excel on the MacBook, which is then projected onto the headset? Why not just run Excel natively on the headset? So that's just my opinion on this, and I think that justifies the price because it's a MacBook replacement, not so much you buy the MacBook and then you buy the headset to do games on the headset.
I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's anything wrong with the Vision pricing. I just think it's unaffordable. For
for sure, it is unaffordable if you wanna treat it like a headset, right? Because like you say, like Meta, the people at Meta probably did the happy dance, but the Meta headset only does that, right? It is just a headset. You don't really do work on a headset. Like, I mean, ideally, I would love to do that, but even if for the Meta as well as the Pico, if I do my desktop projection on the headset, it's not like just doing the work on my computer. So I'm like, screw this, I'd rather just rather just do this on a computer rather than the headset. I think they're aiming to have like no computer, just a headset.
Yeah, just
That's the two.
again, just for people who aren't like well researched in this topic of VR headsets, if you go look for a VR headset right now that is at the high resolution quality, well, when I say high resolution quality, as in you cannot see the pixels in the Apple headset. That's why they are so high res. There's only one other product at the moment that's near that, and that has that. It's the Vario V3. Well, they've got other ones, but that's their top of the line. That starts at $6,000 just for comparison, and that headset does not have any computing power on it. You have to still buy a computer that can render and create the environments at the resolution and performance that you need to stream to the headset. So that when there's a lot of people on that side of the spectrum that when they saw their pricing, it was the opposite reaction of holy shit, that is insanely cheap for what it's producing, and the fact that there's so much computing on board as well with the M2 chip and the R1 chip that they've added. So Apple is positioning itself extremely well in that price point with their product in comparison to the other competitors who are trying to, like, for example, Vario's main one is they sell to the military for flight simulation and battle simulation. It's one of their biggest clients. Absolutely chopped them off.
I mean, my guy is. I mean, it's the same. I mean, it's the same argument for the PSVR, right? You're paying $500,
Yeah.
$520 for a headset that doesn't have any processing power or battery,
Exactly.
right? But the gaming experience is crazy, right? But I think to Phil's point, he's just saying that the price point, you know, it cuts out a lot of people, you know, from even thinking about it, right? Like $3,500.
Yeah.
Okay, screw that, out of
I mean,
my price range, right?
You'll never stop people asking that question. Oh, I could buy 10 Quest 2s for this price. Like, no one's going to ever not say that to themselves. And that's the kind of the point of they're like, well, I can buy my whole family a headset instead.
Yeah.
But the three things that were the most surprising that came out of this is, as you say, with Vario, there's only one competitor to what this headset does, and that is the XR3. And the thing is that it is half the price, and you're getting a lot more power, and you can do a lot more things with it. But the second thing was that they were pushing, as you just said with the MacBook, a lot of the reviewers have said, and they've said that Apple's positioned itself to sort of say, you know, you'll have to make a decision between a MacBook, NX MacBook and the headset. So I think that's a very deliberate move. And the third thing was that they'd chopped out the controllers and not made it compatible with any VR device made in the last decade. Or headset device made in the last decade. So they've deliberately gone down a route. And to Phil's point, for those who are confused about, you know, getting a lot of value for your money, etc., there's a couple of really astute viewers, and Thrill Seeker is a great guy to watch. He does amazing reviews and videos on specifically VR stuff. He was saying that people have got it wrong, and that this Apple headset is not a competitor to Quest. It's in a completely different track and field, and that people will still continue to buy Quests, and they'll get better, and they'll be very much gaming focused and focused on the things that they're focused on, whereas this is very much a productivity design and developer device. So at this stage, so it's going to be very, very interesting to see how the market reacts. But I don't think you'll find too many people paying that sort of a price just to play video games at this stage. So Quest still has a place, doesn't it? Still has a
Atesh did drop a comment similar to that of he's got a suspicion that Apple will, because they always call their one product a Pro, and then they'll have lower tiers of that product. So this being the Vision Pro, he was speculating that they will drop a lower quality in terms of material finish and spectral device that might be appealing to the masses, which is possible, but unlikely given Apple. But if they did do that, there would be huge potential.
They did say, like, I know that Paul Barron had an interview yesterday and was talking to some people in relation to the same exact topic and saying that they'd bring out a cheaper headset. But if you watch the keynote, they said that this is the lowest quality product that they'll bring out. So the chances are, unless
unlikely.
Yeah, unless they go back on their word, which they're very, very unlikely to do, the only way they'll provide a cheaper unit will be if the parts or cost to manufacture gets cheaper, because they've said this is the lowest quality product that we'll be putting out. So it's very unlikely they'll have a cheaper headset in any time soon. And they're still saying, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think they're saying that the AR, we're not going to see anything that's a pure, but like the glasses, the AR glasses. They're saying not until beyond 2025.
Yeah, I was actually had a chat with Red Bull. We were in a one-on-one and we were discussing like the future of VR and interactions and things. We were discussing AR and VR and what AR could be for RFOX and things like that. And in there, we were both discussing the thing that right now, with where technology is, it makes no sense to try and put technology over your view of the real world through your real eyes. It makes far more sense to record what's outside and bring it in as an image, lay everything up exactly what Apple has done. It's just where technology is right now. It just makes way more sense to do that. So we don't have, because with what they're doing, you can control the full level of light completely. You don't have to worry about shielding light out of your eyes when you're trying to create a dark environment, which is impossible. It's literally impossible. Well, right now. So that wasn't a surprise to me, but you're going to see the beautiful thing about this is so many more. The Quest 3 is already kind of heading in that direction where they're going with color capturing of the environment around you with pass-through and things like that. But now that Apple's gone so hardcore into it, you're going to find it becoming like kind of standard across other stuff in other companies because they want to be relevant and compete with those experiences that come from that.
Just being mindful of time, I can see that there's a few more questions there. One of them pops right out, which is PJ3 saying a couple of AMAs ago you mentioned that you guys would show the Vault to VR gamer influencers. Has that already happened, and what was the typical response from this target group? Impress specific points that the Vault should improve or focus on? Yes, we have. And the answer to that is, being very brutally honest and blunt, is that the key takeaway that they liked the most was they said that whoever's built the Vault, is their words, understands surfaces and textures and stuff, and they hadn't seen as impressive textures and finishes in a VR app, specifically referring to stuff like the flooring, the tiles, how they reflect and shine, and you go into Archimoto and you've got the blades to the back of the districts and stuff, and they shine and glow. They said that someone put a lot of effort and time and thought into that. They'd criticised the water, but again, it's a matter of balancing the load and the finish. They'd said that the frame rates per second was something that we would have to get up, and we already know that. Again, when you're balancing resolution and load, and again, you'll see that when the Quest 3 is coming out, a lot of people have sort of said that some of the games that they'd played the first two versions of are now only available on Quest 3. It's a locked environment, and people are pissed because they've been playing it on PC before, and the graphic quality has had to come right down for VR, so they're not impressed. We're dealing with those limitations, but we get a 26% bump now with the 2s and 11% with Pro for Quest. So there's going to be some serious improvements. But mainly that's what it is. It's the frame rates per second. We've sort of asked them, do we need more activities and more things in here? And they're saying no. What you need is stability. Make sure that the frame rates per second are up so people don't feel dizzy or nauseous or sick. And to focus on the socializing side of things as well. So get people in and have events and gatherings and stuff like that. You'll notice that today I had a couple of people reach out re the C11DAO event and sort of say, how will events work in the future? So I sort of went out on Twitter today just as a tester and said, look, if people are looking at doing an event, I'll happily help host that for you. no costs, just so that you can get in there and have a look and do that. So I've got a couple of calls lined up over the next few days to sort of draw that out and see whether the projects are, whether they're the right ones. But ultimately, the feedback, Lala, you probably got more to add, but the feedback so far has been, it's impressive. They think that some of the concepts like the AI and stuff is well ahead of our competitors, and they say that you've got some really innovative stuff. You need to just get those basics right, like the load, the balance, which is what we're working feverishly on at the moment. And that's the type of thing that prohibits you from getting listed on some of these marketplaces as well. You've got to sort of have a minimum frame rate per second, and you've got to have certain specifications. And for us, we're pushing the boundary. We've got pretty high graphics for what the Quest can do. So we're really looking forward to this bit of extra juice that they're going to be bringing out in these Quests now. So, yep. Anything that you want to add, Lala, from your experience of walking through with these people?
Yeah, for sure. So again, we'll get more people in for the new build. If you guys were aware, last week was actually a new adaptation or a new build that was for the Aavegotchi event, and there were a lot of impressive weeks. But in terms of the walkthroughs that we did a couple of weeks back, it's always interesting to hear how they feel when they go into different instances. The first thing that is whoa, this is totally different. This doesn't look the same like the one before that. So it's kind of like different worlds is one thing, but hearing people say that that's what they felt like going into Fear or going into Cog Slam and then going to the arcade, every single part that was very positive was basically the social side of it and how they could imagine people being in there, hanging around, playing with things, and just fiddling with whatever they can. They were very interested in seeing how creator communities would come in eventually, because the examples are there. It's just more of how is it going to be brought to life would be the bigger question for them in future. So yeah, it's been a good one. I think all the conversations we've had with them have been positive. Ben, as usual, has done an absolute amazing job bringing them around and answering everything from start. They also really share their feedback, because the ones that we've had of late are very VR centric. They really know that market and what people are looking for. So it's been a good conversation so far.
Yeah, thanks, Lala. I think the team's been doing an amazing job of doing that, and we don't go in there under any false pretense either. We sort of don't go in there and go, have a look at this. This is the best thing you've ever seen in your life. We sort of let people look through and give us feedback, and we take that feedback very seriously. And being honest, one of the last guys we had in, he's pretty big, and he sort of has offered to come back in as many times as we like, and he'll do a review and show on us at some stage shortly, I'm sure. But what he also said is, you're at that stage now where you need to get some of these VR people that frequent VR worlds in all the time. So it's great that you're opening up to creators, because the creators, it's still early enough for you to be able to have them really help influence in a positive way and help you build stuff that's very meaningful and guide you and direct you a little bit. And he said that one of our biggest strengths to this point has been the fact that we've had different people from different backgrounds contributing and working on this, and therefore we've created things that are very different to other VR worlds, because, you know, it's kind of like a white belt versus a black belt. You come in, the white belt's very unpredictable, comes in flailing their arms and legs, and we've sort of said, look, we're combining lots of technologies, let's try some stuff, and we've come up with some really innovative stuff. And what they're saying now is, now it's time to bring in the seasoned people that spend lots of time in these environments and make sure that you're getting the basics right for those guys that are going to give you the engagement and the tenure and come back again and again. So every time we have a walkthrough with one of these experienced VR people, we learn 20 times as much as we would reading research reports, reviewing stuff on the internet, reading at what other projects are doing, looking at apps and stuff that are on the market. As soon as you speak to someone, they say stuff that's very, very simplistic. And an example would be, I go into the chess room in the arcade and I can pick up your cookies and I can pick up your donuts and I can eat them and it's cool. But I can't go behind the bar and pick up the drinks. Why is one interactive and one's not? And quite often it's just that, we're rushing to get things out and we're putting things out, but it's simple things like that a VR user that spends their life in VR goes in and says, I want to touch things, I want to interact. So as you'll know, we move quickly, we put beer bottles on the bar, made it so that you could pick them up and drink them and all the rest of it. We really, really listen and we try and make sure that we are all ears when it comes to people who are very experienced and tenured users. So we're going to learn a lot from the developers that come in as well. So really looking forward to that. Any other questions that we've got? Like I said, we've got a couple of really... Sorry, go, Lila.
Sorry, yeah, I think I have to ask if C11 wants to share the whole experience of Aavegotchi, because I think it was pretty late for a few of us on that day, and maybe share a little bit of insights would be great for the community. Not sure, Jay, are you ready to share anything just yet?
Yeah, it started at midnight for me over here, and it was all round. It was a great event. So basically, after their official proceedings for the Fake Fest art event, they sort of all streamed into the Valt district, and yeah, the reaction was very positive all around. Most of them came in via mobile, but yeah, they said they were blown away, even on the mobile. So, and I said, look, get your hands on a VR headset as soon as you can, because it's like just another experience on top of that again. So they wandered around and saw all their artwork up on the walls and in the C11 district, and yeah, loved it. So we after that, we sort of talked about some other things that C11 can do with Aavegotchi and help out their community, such as like they're looking at 3D gotchis and avatars as well. So we said, look, we can probably help in that area. And yeah, there was a lot of good chats and a lot of promising things for the future. So overall, yeah, it was a great event.
PJ was asking, how many people were estimated to have joined the event?
That is a good question. Overall around, there was, in their Discord call, there was around 40 or 50. I think people that came over might have been about 20 or so, 20, 25 for different times. A few came on and then a few left. And so, yeah, over the course of the night, yeah, hard to put numbers on it, but maybe 20, 25.
Yeah, it was. I think I can add a bit of context to that as well, because I think that from the number that I saw that there was about 12 people or so at one time being the max in there. But we had, from the number that I got, we had 30. There was 32 people that it was being streamed to as well. So, yeah. So the numbers probably weren't as high as they never are. If someone says we're going to bring 500 people, you can divide that by a certain number and you probably get a more accurate score. But the thing that I noticed was I was walking around before. I thought I'd jump in 90 minutes before or something, and I was still stuck there right when it started because I'd bumped into 2 game devs and a couple of artists, and then one of the guys from our community who wants to do some content. So it was really good to bump into people that are actually there that can contribute and build as well. It wasn't just people walking around going, oh, I'm just curious, I want to have a sticky beak. There was some actual people there saying, and the good part about it is you guys are helping us, and it's really important because some of you are really active on Twitter and socials and saying, hey, and adding us to different groups saying you should get in and check out the Vault. Hey, you should get in there and do that. And the weird part about it is the 2 devs, the game devs that I spoke to, both of them one of them, it was their first time in there and the first day that heard about us, and the other one had heard about us a week before. And when I asked, how did you hear about us? They both said, someone from your community put a message in one of the feeds and said we should go and have a look at your Vault. And I don't know who the one person was, but the person said, I didn't know how to get access or anything. And the community member walked me through, guided me, and even offered to meet me in there and give me a tour. And I said I couldn't commit to a time, so I just went in there and did it myself, and then happened to bump into me. So guys, it really works, and you think sometimes you're doing it in vain. You're not. People are coming in as a result of you tagging us in their feed. So thank you very much for that support. That helps hugely.
I think one of those game devs might be with us here tonight. Defiant from DeFi Bears.
I am here, boys. I'm just listening in quietly in the background, listening to what's going on. It's all amazing stuff. But yeah, I actually was tagged by just one of your community members, and he put you guys on my map. I downloaded, went in. I was having a little look around. I got lost looking for the chess game, and then I actually luckily bumped into Bennett. And then from then, yeah, we've been talking, and me and Phil even had a meeting today as well. So yeah. It does work, guys. Honestly, you think it doesn't, but just spreading that word and just putting it out there. You know, you've got a product that people actually do want to look at. It's worth just dropping it in any place you can, because you get people like us, the creators. You know, we come and take a look, and people that actually appreciate what's being built will stay around. You know.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thanks for joining us as well. And I think it's I think that it's also great what people like yourself and the other devs that I'm talking to sort of have all said in unison as well. And that is, I think the thing that surprises people is they all say, I'm bringing out an app and I'm looking to get it listed on a particular store or whatever. And when you say you could also deploy a version of your game or your experience or whatever in the Vault separately or independently, that's an option that's not available to a lot of devs as well. So it's just a matter of getting that word out there, and it's only going to take a couple of people to come in and say, well, you know, it's essentially it's a very risk-free roll of the dice for me to try that and to put that into another environment and see how that plays out. And then once you start building that user base up, people are heavily incentivized to come in and deploy in the world. So it does work, and yeah, ironically, you're here, and that's living proof of being tagged in a post and making your way in there. So thank you for that, guys. Make sure that you continue to do that, because the more the word gets out, the more we're going to get coming in. So thank you very much.
Ben, I think we kind of have to end it because I have to steal Ben for a bit for another event that's happening in a couple of minutes.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, guys. Appreciate you being here as always, and look forward to seeing you in the Vault.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye bye.